I'm a silly sausage, so I'm a hit the record button there instead of the live button, and I thought we were doing a stream, Steve, and you're muted at the moment. I'm just explaining to people something they didn't need to know. We weren't even live. Such a silly sausage. We'll be there in a couple of moments, folks. All right, Lunger, let's do it.
Just talk to each other.
I'm your Huckleberry. Shite music. And we're live. Well, hello everybody, and welcome in to this Monday's entertainment news. I am Jonathan C. Walsh. I am the host on the stream tonight. Joining me to my left is Stephen John McLaughlin. He's the co-host on the stream tonight, and we've got a couple of interesting topics, Stephen, we're going to touch on. I'm going to get my silly head off for a brief moment, because we are going to be touching on a less jovial subject, Stephen. Obviously, we've lost a fair amount of legendary figures and names in the last few months, last couple of years, in fairness. And obviously, I'm bringing it up. Terence Stamp passed away. And but just, Stephen, we do a little sort of obituary, a little discussion on the career, the man, the myth, the legend that is Terence Stamp, and obviously previous times Gene Hackman and guys like that. Obviously it's tremendously sad news when an actor or just anyone of that standing who's had such an influence on pop culture, and obviously in this case film, passes away. I'm not even remotely prepared to bring up a weird thing, so I'm just not going to bother bringing it up. Stephen, he passed away at the age of 87, and he was, I know I can speak for you, Stephen, when we say we're a fan of that era where he was in his pomp, when the likes of the Beatles and the Kinks and the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan and people of that ilk were a thing, Johnny Cash and Elvis to an extent, the sort of swinging 60s. And what that represented, a freeing up of culture and society from the stuffiness that came before. And he was a kind of poster boy alongside the likes of Michael Caine and whatnot, this handsome young actor rising up in that era. And obviously done extensive work, Stephen, multitude of theatre productions and not just film, but obviously he was a very varied actor. So it's incredibly sad news. He was born in East London. There's great stories about the guy, in particular one involving Sean Connery, who hung about with him and Michael Caine in the London scene. Sean telling Michael Caine to hold his coat while he went and beat the shit out of a couple of drunk people who were hollering at a woman, a damsel. And Terence was very much in amongst all of that scene, so yeah, I mean, Steve, I don't know if you've got anything to say. We'll obviously have a brief discussion as well about the man's career and obviously memorable roles that stick out for us.
John, the one that does stick out obviously for myself and probably yourself is probably because of our age is General Zod from Superman 2. But the strange thing was I was actually watching an interview. I think it might have been Parkinson that Terence Stamp was on from. I don't know if it was the early 80s. It was certainly after Superman, because that's what he was talking about, or more precise, he was talking about Marlon Brando and his sort of behaviour on set and his process. It was a very interesting conversation, and I think he was doing theatre work at the time, and he got a call from Richard Donner. And when you think about that, you're phoning someone that's predominantly classically trained in theatre for a comic book film, and bear in mind there wasn't any comic book films out at this point, in 1978. That must have been a hard sell until he mentioned the name Marlon Brando, and I think that's what pulled him in. It was such an interesting conversation, John, and such an interesting guy as well. Growing up, I was 2 when Superman the movie came out, so I was fairly young when I was taking this film in. So someone like Terence Stamp as General Zod was terrifying. He was, he had such a deep voice, and his delivery was very dry, and just his look was menacing as well. So a fantastic actor. He's been in so many films, but I think obviously ones that stand out, the strange one for me that stands out, and it shouldn't really, is The Phantom Menace. Because he was so underutilized as Chancellor Valorum. It was almost like the Max von Sydow scenario in The Force Awakens. You get a really amazing actor in to read a couple of lines and then they're gone.
It was memorable though, Stephen. It was memorable.
In that franchise. But in terms of Terence Stamp, John, we were looking at his filmography before we came on, and just the amount of work he has done, and just he'll be sadly missed. I still think 87 is a young age, these days. So it was sad to see and obviously hear that news coming through the other day.
Well, it was, Stephen, and look at it strikes back to what I've said time again, really, that as time moves on, it waits for no man, sadly, and we've got a lot of truly great actors and singers and musicians and whatnot who are getting older and older, and inevitably they're going to start passing away. We're going to lose these great people. And it's always a terribly sad thing, because understandably they will have a legacy and they've impacted generations of people's lives through their performances and their work. But when you lose these people, it's just, I don't know, it creates a disconnect from the past. I'm always fascinated by connections that people have, the whole Kevin Bacon thing. 5 degrees of separation, how far back you can go. Individuals like this maybe going back as far as Peter Cushing and way back beyond into like the 1930s and 40s. You've got these connections, and as you start losing these people, it's just the younger people who are left, and they don't have as many connections back to a fascinating time in human history. But Stephen, for me, I look through the guy's filmography. I'm looking at it right now. The one that stands out for me is obviously, I'd say Valkyrie for me, in terms of my fascination with World War II. And he played such a prominent role in that. Obviously, he wasn't fucking Tom Cruise, he wasn't von Stauffenberg, but he was one of the leading conspirators, General Ludwig Beck. And there was a scene in particular that stands out when they know they've been found out, everything's going to shit. They thought Hitler was dead and they were successful. And then it turns out he survived, and you can see the panic and the sort of, in some people's faces, but also the acceptance. And I'm certain that if I go back and watch it, I'm pretty sure Terence did a fantastic job when they're kind of all having their little clandestine meeting. And he basically says, we're screwed, I'm going to shuffle off this mortal coil. So it's just a truly phenomenal actor, a theatre actor. And Stephen, I found it interesting what you said about Zod and the projecting of the voice, the deepness of the voice. I always find that with these great theatre actors who transition over to film. You think of Ian McKellen, you think of, back on his name, Alec Guinness and guys like that, and Cushing and all these great English-trained actors. They all had that authority, they all had that voice, that presence, and that stems from the theatre.
Yeah, he had a good humour as well about him. Obviously, he made an appearance in Bowfinger, as small as it was, but with Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin. I can't remember when that came out, in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, it was definitely the 90s,
yeah.
And he also appeared in Yes Man with Jim Carrey. A very small role, but a memorable role, because it was centred around his sort of preaching, if you recall, and Jim Carrey was obviously one of his disciples. But a very funny guy, but intimidating at the same time. And he always came across like that in any film I saw, just an imposing figure.
Yeah. And Stephen, he wasn't the biggest guy, I don't think. In terms of physicality, he wasn't the biggest physical specimen, but you're right about Zod, he certainly had a look that was menacing. And that's something I think is lacking at times in modern day film. Some of the actors, you think Jesse Eisenberg getting cast as fucking Lex Luthor, it's like, this guy's getting no physicality.
Well, I get obviously the costume design is from the day. People looking at it now, that grew up with Cavill or whatever, would look at Zod and think it's a bit it's a bit fruity, you know. But it was for its day. You know, he was a terrific actor, you know, and he carried that role very well. And I think just in terms of that certain film, you know, we lost Gene Hackman earlier this year,
Yeah.
who was also pivotal in that franchise, you know.
Nuclear
So
Man, yeah.
it's just another one, you know. And as you said, you know, we're going through these
He was
this,
Nuclear Man,
this
just saying he said
period of these great actors, you know, and they're all in their 80s and 90s. Michael Caine, I think, is now retired, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think The Greatest Escape, or whatever it was called, that film he did with, I'm blanking on her name. She passed away. It was her last film.
Is
I
it
can't
Maggie
remember.
Smith?
No, it wasn't Maggie Smith. I can't remember her
She
name.
passed away and she was floating about in
Greatest.
that era. The Greatest Escape. Let's search that up just now. No, it's not The Great Escape, you lunatic. What are you doing here, man? Come on. It was, let's find her. I'm getting an Indian movie now. What is going on? Wait, Google.
Was it The Greatest Escaper? I can't remember what it was called.
There is an Indian movie called The Great Escape. Have we reacted to that? The Great Escaper, yeah. Was it Glenda Jackson?
Glenda Jackson,
Glenda Jackson,
she
yeah.
sadly passed away. I think that was her last movie, but again, she's in that sort of bracket as well.
Yeah,
you know,
the ones I mentioned there, Stephen, the likes of Maggie Smith, and obviously Alan Rickman passed before his time, but Michael Gambon and all those great actors from that era, I mean, they're all sadly starting to pass away now, and it's a shame, because I grew up with these people. These people have got a sort of special place in my mind's eye. And when I was growing up, that's just how I used to watch these things.
I don't want to sound morbid about it, you know, it's part of life. But, you know, they're part of your life, a big part of your life. If you're a film fanatic or you enjoy television and you grow up with certain people, it is sad to see it happen, you know, and it's sad to see it go. And it comes in waves, you know, it comes in generations. And we're now coming to the generation that the likes of Stallone and Schwarzenegger are now entering that sort of stage as well, which is quite frightening, you know, when you think about it.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy, Steve. We have these conversations all the time. I mean, effectively, you're now becoming.
We're depressing sods.
I don't want to scare you or anything, but you're now becoming. I mean, you're almost turning into like the boomer generation now. Gen X are becoming the older generation.
Boomer.
As a millennial now, the middle old generation. We've got the Zoomers who are now in work in their 20s. And we've got Alpha generation who are already into their nearly hitting teenage years, which is fucking horrifying. So yeah, it's just the nature of life, Stephen. Sadly, we all grow older. No one gets younger unless you're Benjamin Button. And with that inevitability, you start losing great people. You start losing some not so great people as well, but we don't talk about them. Because why would we? So yeah, sadly missed. Rest in peace, Terence. And we're going to move on to Tarantino, Stephen. We were speaking about Quentin a couple of nights ago. We were talking about creative paralysis. We were talking about his final film. And we had a brief conversation about Clith Booth, The Adventures of, and obviously Fincher and whatnot. And I think we spoke about it last night as well. And so we thought, why not do a show talking about Bradley Pitt. And The Adventures of Clith Booth, a character we both loved. Stephen, one of the things that stood out in the conversation was, time and again, speaking about Tarantino's great ability to deliver fully fledged characters you immediately bond with, and the bond deepens as you go through the experience with them. That's the core strength of his movies. Also, the great dialogue, the way he envelops you in the story, the sort of attention to detail and scenes, things you could watch his films 50 times and you'll find something new on the 50th watch. And the way that he adds that onto the characters are so interesting. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Rick Dalton, incredibly interesting character. Clith Booth, though, almost impossible to give that guy enough justice in a 2.5 hour, 2 hour, 40-minute film, whatever Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was. Because it was a Rick Dalton story and he was a sort of major player in Rick's life, but he wasn't Rick Dalton. But an interesting enough cat. And I was so pleased to see we were getting a spin-off, Stephen, because I've spoke about this time and again. The likes of 1917, you think of young Irish actor that popped up, Benedict Cumberbatch. I always blanking his fucking name, that Irish actor. But all the great cameos we had in 1917, these sort of generals and fucking sergeants or whatever in the British Army who would interact with the leading two. Obviously, your man, George. 1917, I'm doing shit in the sky here. George, I love the guy as well, George Mackay.
George Mackay, yeah.
And I wanted spin-offs with those characters. Andrew Scott was the Irish actor, by the way. He is Irish, yeah, he's Irish, definitely. I wanted spin-offs with them. I found those characters so interesting, the way they popped onto the screen briefly and then they were gone. We didn't get that with Cliff, we get a fair insight into his life, but we never really get to see that happen. It's one and done. I mean, you don't envelop or embellish the stories. We're getting to do this with Cliff. What is your thoughts on that, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, John, once upon a time in Hollywood, I think in terms of screen time, I think it was justified, though, because it's one of those films that has three leads, you know, and obviously Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and not so much obviously the character. It's more the character that's the issue, because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is loosely based on real time events, if you like, in the background, but it's not the focus. So Margot Robbie, I do class as one of the leading actors in that, as Sharon Tate, which it's weird because I don't think she was on the screen that much, but she probably was. I haven't watched it in a while.
No, I'm going to search her up.
I think, yeah, I mean, the focus is Rick Dalton, his career, and obviously how this all unfolds, and his career and his life is unraveling, and Cliff is the sort of the centre of all this. He's wingman, he's gardener, he's he's a fixer upper, and it's going to be interesting. I know obviously his role as a stuntman, but there's backstory obviously about the wife killing and that kind of thing, which we didn't really delve too much into. It was more a rumour than anything, and
just a rumour.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how this will play out. But
I've got a synopsis I'm going to tell you about, Steve.
You know, David Fincher's worked with Brad Pitt on Seven and Fight Club. Is that right?
Yeah, he's getting.
So he knows what he's getting, and Brad Pitt knows what he's getting as for a director for this as well. So it makes sense. You know, Tarantino, I would love to see him do this film, but I don't want this to be his last film, if you know what I mean. So because it's a spin-off, but I think in terms of having Tarantino write this story and have Fincher directing, it's perfect, I think.
Stephen Fincher's a strange one, because obviously he's a fantastic director, but you often forget just how good a director he actually fucking is. It's when you look at his actual back catalogue. This guy he's done some unbelievably good films.
Yeah, it's weird because we talk about event directors and we all seem to miss this guy off our list for some reason. I don't know why, because we're more than well aware of the quality of his work and his body of work over the past 30 odd years. And we know how good he is, but for some reason he's always off our list. I don't know why.
I mean, I'm just looking at it.
Some amazing films out there he's done.
Yeah, Seven, The Game, Fight Club, Panic Room. I love Panic Room. It's probably one of his lower rated, bigger films, and I thought it was fantastic.
It's got a very indie feel to it, yeah.
Yeah. Zodiac, fucking phenomenal film.
Zodiac,
Social Network, brilliant film. Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, underrated film. I actually think it was pretty good. He was involved in House of Cards in 2 episodes, and ate this show that for up until obviously the controversy with Kevin Spacey, I absolutely loved it. It was one of my all-time favourite TV shows. Kevin, you fucking...
I'm obsessed with John, yeah.
What were you doing, Kevin? You ruined my enjoyment of that show, mate, by getting done. Then he made it about the wife, and the wife wasn't as interesting a character. Gone Girl, Mank. The guy's delivered at least 6.5, 7 out of 10 movies. At the bare minimum, a lot of them high 8, 9 out of 10 movies for me. So he's a brilliant director, and he's worked with Bradley before, so we know that they mesh together creatively. We'll get into actual Tarantino's rationale on why he didn't do it and why he's obviously picked Fincher. Stephen, I do find it interesting. I searched up Clith Booth and his screen time for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm surprised how much he was actually on the screen. 55 minutes and 12 seconds. He's only 6 minutes less than Rick Dalton, Leonardo DiCaprio. That's a fucking cool lead. I don't know,
That's what I'm
mate.
saying,
Aye.
John. You know, it's definitely a co-lead. It's not a supporting role. I can't remember how it was categorised for the Academy Awards, because one of them won, didn't they? I can't remember.
That may have been. What did they? Did they win? Hold on.
I remember they were. I think they might have been nominated, and we were surprised that one of them was in a supporting, because we never regarded it. Maybe I'm misremembering this, but I see it as two leads. I think also Margot Robbie as well was a lead in this.
Brad Pitt
Although
was.
she's not on the screen as much, her role in it is just as important and as big.
Well, she.
You know, and her sort of sequences that she was in was, you know, some of the most memorable ones. That's going to the cinema, buying the book.
Yeah,
you know,
Stephen, it was the way I remember the whole
well.
nonsense about Margot at the time. She didn't have enough speaking parts, and people were losing their mind. There's another example of Tarantino's sexism. He hates women, and he's just.
It wasn't
about that. She wasn't supposed to be this big, bombastic character. He was showcasing the sort of purity of her, the innocence within hugging out and just enjoying life, and then becoming pregnant, this sort of carefree spirit and the tragedy of her and what happened to her. I thought he'd done a fantastic job of doing that. Obviously, Cliff, he's kind of interacting with the Manson family and whatnot and doing his thing. So I didn't realise it was as close a split between the two. I knew he had a sizable role in the film, but I didn't realise it was that big. Bring this up, because this is the thoughts of Quentin and why he obviously chose David Fincher as the director. I think he was speaking to the Church of Tarantino podcast. This was a podcast I was talking about, Stephen, a couple of nights ago, where the host kept referring to him as a weird-looking guy, and he finally got to meet him in person and says, you know what, I've been listening, and you definitely remember when people call out your looks, because it's your face, at least 9 times. He says, I've got to tell you, sitting across from you, you've got some balls on you. You're not a bad-looking guy, but who the fuck are you to criticise my looks? So I love that about Quentin. He's very straight to the point, grabs the bull by the horns, doesn't muck about. But that was the podcast. And obviously spoke about it with him. He says he loved the script. He's still walking down the same ground he's already walked. It's just kind of unenthused me. The last movie, I got to know what I'm... This last movie, I've got to not know what I'm doing again. I've got to be in uncharted territories, talking about number 10 movie. And Stephen, we've kind of went over that the other night, but I'm telling you, man, this guy's got creative block just now, and he needs to get out this funk and get this movie made. I'm not going to go over that again. That's not what we're talking about. But just that there intrigues me. This last movie, I've got to not know what I'm doing again. What the fuck do you mean, man? You've got to know what you're doing at all times, Quentin. You're creating the movie, you're creating the characters. Of course you know what you're doing. What do you mean? I know what he means. It means he's not going to rehash a fucking story and create a film about a secondary character. But he says about Fincher, Stephen, I think me and David Fincher are the 2 best directors. What about Chris Nolan? Oh, you're going to upset the Nolan fanboys, Quentin. I'm one of them. So the idea that David Fincher actually wants to adapt my work, to me, shows a level of seriousness towards my work that I think needs to be taken into account. Stephen, I think he's a perfect director to take on this role,
John,
like you said.
I would actually disagree with him in terms of his choice of best directors out there. I agree they're 2 of the best, but I think he's maybe meaning writer/director. You know, perhaps because, as you said, Denis Villeneuve, Christopher Nolan out there. No, I'm not having that, Quentin. I'm not leaving them off the list.
We've got a comment, Stephen, from Tominoid Free. I've not read the book. I remember the book. I'd like to read that, because it fleshed it out a bit, I'm sure. The book has some good Cliff bits. The times he get away with murder, origin of Brandy, dog's name, etc. That's interesting. You brought that to my attention. I need to actually go and get that. I want to read that, because I love this story, man. I love the characters.
Fantastic.
It just, Stephen, it transports you, that film. That film's a special film. I never understood some of the haters for that film going on about the way it flowed, and there's too many driving sequences, there's too much of this. It's just a nostalgia trip. That film was transported, man. That came late in the summer, and I absolutely fucking loved watching it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I loved the stuff on the ranch with Brad Pitt and Austin Butler. some of that was just absolutely classic cinema. And it's one of the things that, just the aesthetics of that
Rex.
film, which I hope is carried on into this new spin-off film as well. I don't even know the time period, John. I don't know how far we're going back.
I'll bring that up just now, Stephen, because we've got it here. The Quentin Tarantino archives, they mention it. They're saying the content of this page is no longer valid. An up-to-date version is already available. Well, let's fucking click on that then, shall we? Why would I want to read an out-of-date one? I hope they've not changed the actual fucking story or the plot or the setting, I should say. Story set in the late 1970s. The film follows Clith Booth, a former stuntman turned Hollywood studio fixer. Operating in the shadows, Booth handles the industry's darkest secrets, from scandals to blackmail, showcasing a grittier side of Hollywood's golden era. Now that's interesting, because Tarantino's almost doing a love letter to Hollywood in that time period. Obviously he touches on the darker side with the Manson murders, but it's almost like it's like a love letter to these aging actors who have lost their way and they try and stay relevant, Rick Dalton in that case, and the young up-and-coming actors who are fighting tooth and nail to replace them. Timothy Olyphant in that scene. He's not much older, but
it's such a Inception scenario when you think about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You just mentioned there the aging actors try to stay relevant, when in real sort of world time you've got Nicholas Hammond, who was the original Spider-Man from 1970, Piers, I think he's his sort of manager, the one that wants him to be dressed up like Hell's Angels. You remember that? He's there. Your man from Karate Kid, John Kreese, I can't remember the actor's name. Another one who we remember from the past. Tarantino's very good at doing that. There's so many actors, David Carradine, in Kill Bill, John Travolta, and he's put that into the Rick Dalton situation, hasn't he? And we're going to do that again. Timothy Olyphant, you mentioned there, John, that was one of the best scenes in that film, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, because it was a breakdown mentally. I'm just looking at that. Steve McQueen, what a fucking guy. Honestly, what a guy. It could be the coolest guy that's ever lived. Genuinely.
King of cool.
Oh, it's just unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. Just the way he held himself, the look, the clothes. Just an unbelievably fucking cool guy. Yeah, just sad the way it obviously played out with him, but look, that's neither here nor there. No, Stephen, that sequence was one of the best, because it kind of tapped into his darkest fears. He's coming up against a guy who's here to replace him, and he's having a complete breakdown. Obviously, he gets a bit of, what would you call it? A second wind is the best I can come up with just now. He vindicates himself by getting out again and nailing it. Yeah. And he's in a happier place. But that whole sequence and the connected sequences where he goes into the sort of motorhome, the trailer, and has a breakdown and says, fucking drink, I need to stop drinking, I'm paraphrasing, and then he immediately picks it up and drinks again and throws it. It's just the way the character is just having a mental collapse. Fucking sensational. Sensational acting, brilliant writing. And again, it just plays into Tarantino and his knowledge of the industry, working, I'm sure, I've been around these older actors who are fighting tooth and nail to hang on to relevancy. And it's a complete piranha pool, Hollywood. I can imagine being there. You watch these round table videos, and time and again the message that comes out is, one, people have not got a clue, it's no glitz and glamour. You have to work crazy hours, you're up at stupid o'clock, but just constant anxiety and fear about not getting a job again. After that film's done, what if I don't get another film? This is fucking A-list actors, man.
The sort of back and forth between DiCaprio's Rick Dalton and Timothy Olyphant's character as well, which I think he's
loving it.
Doing again, isn't he, in this new film? Yeah. It's a competitive nature of actors as well, try to outdo each other, because it's dog eat dog. They're all in it for themselves, such as their egos, but you can sense that in those scenes. You can sense that Oliphant's character is very much enjoying Dalton's squirm and struggle with his lines and his timing, his delivery. You can just see it, although he's not saying it. You can sense it.
What was that line?
Just down to good writing.
What was that line he said? He sound like a goddamn fool or something like that. I'm trying to remember what he said. I need to go back and watch that film. It's been too long.
Yeah.
It's been a good few years. I have to go back and watch it. But we're talking about it, Stephen, the end sequence with Cliff. What was your name again? The devil? No, it was dumber than that. Rex, that's it. And then the cans getting thrown, the fucking telephone, knives getting... There's just chaos everywhere, and the flamethrower. That's what I loved as well. Just the Rick Dalton, man, just the insight into this character, and obviously he's got everything. He's lying in this pool, what a backdrop. But he's just falling apart. And just again showing you that these people that a lot of society look up to, even now, it's probably worse now, and think they're an example of perfection, their lifestyles, even they've got their demons, they've got things that make them deeply unhappy and insecure. It's just, that's what I love about Tarantino's movies. There's always a depth to it. But Stephen, I'm looking forward to this, man. This character, such an interesting character, man. We did get a lot of insight. I hope the dog's still alive. I don't know how old that dog was. It's the 1960s. I think it was 68, wasn't it? So you're talking 10 years. Might have a new dog.
Yeah.
But but there's so much scope, man, because, I mean, it's been an environment that's just been synonymous with cover-ups and dirty secrets and just actors getting up to no good, and the fact he's playing this sort of fixer-upper for the studio, that's an interesting way to take it off in a new direction. And again, it gives Brad something, a familiar character, but something different to get his teeth into. And like we've said about Fincher, the movies he's done, Zodiac and Seven, Fight Club, he can bring that grittiness, that darkness, a different vibe to this character. It's set in the same universe, kinda. It's the same character, but it's a totally different genre, totally different feel of film. It's going to be interesting to see the way they handle it.
I think it's wise the time period as well, John, that, you know, the character of Clith Booth is obviously moved on from his time with Rick Dalton. We saw that anyway. I mean, obviously Rick got married and was starting to live his own life again, and Cliff was just sort of the third wheel in that relationship. So it makes sense to sort of give it that breathing space of a decade and see what this guy's up to now. It kind of means you're not having to explain where's Rick Dalton, that kind of nonsense, when it's not that important, you know, people move on.
Yeah.
So it'll be good to see.
Yeah, Stephen, but I'm not got much more to add to it, really. I'm not going to rip the arse out of it, but needless to say, the one thing I would speak about is, again, just the evolution of Brad Pitt for this sort of pretty boy. I mean, he was a sort of proper actor. I mean, he was always a proper actor, but he was doing dark, gritty, films like Seven back in the day, and then he became this sort of heartthrob pretty boy for a while, and then, well, in my mind, he did. I don't know if that's borne out in reality. I'd have to check his filmography to be fair. Maybe doing him a fucking massive disservice there. But as he's got older, I like the way he's evolved and did different roles.
Yeah.
He's really fleshed out and tried to experiment. Ad Astra, and I'm trying to think of the other one off the top of my head. Obviously the tank one with Shia LaBeouf. Really enjoyed that. World War II one.
Bullet.
Bullet. Was it Bullet?
Bullet Train?
Bullet Train, yeah, Bullet Train with David Ayer, I think. Or is it Leach?
Yeah.
One of the Davids, I think it's David Leach.
Ayer, Leach and Finch.
I'm pretty sure it was... What was the tank one called again? I mean, I loved that film. Really did. It was a great... And LaBeouf was great in it. He's done some lemons in there as well. For me, Ally was one that was definitely a lemon. I fucking hated that movie. A lot of people love it.
Yeah, I remember you reviewing that.
A lot of people love it. Robert Zemeckis as well. But for me, it was just terrible. The dialogue was shocking. Fury was the one, with the tank. Really, I really enjoyed that. It's probably been rated shit, but I loved it. Loved Ad Astra. But the way he's really fleshed out and he's tried to do different things in Glorious Bastards, Bullet Train, obviously the F1 movie, which is fucking great sort of insight into the sport and what it takes to... Obviously, just the insight into, again, that's almost cutthroat as well. You've got this older guy coming in trying to help out. You've got the young guy coming up. There's just, I've enjoyed this new era of Pitt, and I've always enjoyed him as an actor anyway. But I like fucking Meet Joe Black. I'm not going to lie. That's a sort of guilty pleasure.
But, I mean, seeking back, I mean, we obviously had like small bits in Thelma Louise, and then I remember I think one of the first films I saw him in. I know that he was in the likes of Contact, but the one that kind of stood out for me because I was a massive David Duchovny fan at the time was California from 1993. He starred opposite David Duchovny, and he was fantastic in that. And you look at the films, in those early 90s, True Romance, Interview with a Vampire, Legends of the Fall, as you mentioned, and then you're getting into the sort of some really dark stuff like Seven and Sleepers. 12 Monkeys was another
12
standout
Monkeys
for
was
me.
fucking great.
Obviously, it was your man from Monty Python that directed that, Terry Gilliland, is it?
Is that the chap that passed away? That ended up with.
I'm not sure if he passed
maybe
away, John,
talking
but I
shite.
know obviously I was watching it for Bruce Willis, but I know obviously Brad Pitt kind of stole the show. Terry Gilliam was the
No, he
director.
didn't.
No, I think he's
Very much
still
still
very
alive,
much
Terry.
alive, isn't he?
Talking nonsense.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
thinking about the other one.
and then The Devil's Own. I think that was another standout. But then it said Meet Joe Black, 7 Years in Tibet. This guy's got some filmography when you think
Moneyball.
about it. It's not just all the pretty boy stuff, but Spy Game was another great film, John, that I just thought was a bit underrated. The one he did with Robert Redford in 2001.
Yeah, rings a bell. Because that was another guy I really enjoyed as an actor alongside Paul Newman.
Yeah.
Was Robert Redford back in the day. He was a favourite of my grandfather's and whatnot. So I used to watch his movies. What was the Brubaker? Was that the prison one? Also Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting. Movies like that. And Pitt's resemblance to him is uncanny. It looks like his fucking father.
I think
it's just crazy.
Pitt's very much like Leonardo DiCaprio. He's old school acting, just in terms of the way he delivers. And there's not many actors around, John. We were talking about, because we did a trailer reaction, obviously Timothée Chalamet is another one.
Yeah.
But there's not many around now, and obviously DiCaprio's, I think, a couple of years older than me. Brad Pitt, I think, perhaps maybe in his 60s now, I'm not
61,
sure.
yeah. Come up for 62.
Yeah, incredible. Doesn't look 61,
No.
telling you. He looks a lot younger
Stephen,
than me.
he was the same age as me and Meet Joe Black, and it's sickening, man. You look at the guy, it's like, what the fuck? It really is fucking sickening, man. It's sickening. I'm going to bring an image up of this guy. This fucking guy's 36 here. I mean, what the fuck was he doing? This guy's the same age as me there. What the fuck is that? It's outrageous, man. Outrageous. But no,
John, what's your what is your favourite Brad Pitt role? I know it's a difficult one to say. What's the one that kind of stands out when you think about Brad Pitt?
That's a tough question. Probably Fight Club. Fight Club. Yeah, because that was
Yeah, I would say maybe Seven, Fight Club, or Inglourious Bastards. There's something about that film and Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
he's just perfect for that role.
For
and
me
just
though,
so
that's
funny.
Christoph Waltz, that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ensemble cast, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like Ocean's 11. You can't really say it's a Brad Pitt film, but not just in terms of the character, but in terms of a Brad Pitt film. When you think of Brad Pitt, I'd probably say maybe Seven or Fight Club for me as well.
And it's funny because it's Ed Norton in that movie for the most part, but he gets completely stood up by Brad, as he should.
Yeah.
But no, Steen, he's such a knowledgeable guy as well. I love listening to the guy speaking. He's such a good speaker. The guys get fucking everything. It really is sickening. I keep saying it. It's not sickening because I don't begrudge a guy. But I mean, he's nearly 6 foot. He's got perfect hair even now in his 60s. Fucking incredible looks, brilliant shape. I mean, look at the physique he had in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's like, what's going on here? The guy's in his 50s, shredded. And he's always been shredded. But he's such a good speaker, such an intelligent guy. You can tell he's sharp. And his interviews, his knowledge of film is phenomenal. There was a great one with, God, what's his fucking name? I can't even remember the director. But it was in Paris. I remember showing you it, Stephen. Video store in Paris. And they've got this great interview technique where they pick out their favourite films and they look at the cases and speak about it. Pitt came in and kind of photobombed, video bombed it. And his knowledge in film is phenomenal. So I really do enjoy Bradley. And the fact he's got a great connection to our city, Glasgow. He actually stayed here for a couple of months, I'm sure. And he's been here a couple of times in World War Z film and stuff. So just love the guy. Glad to see the guy still out there making work, man. He's one of the great actors of his generation, arguably the greatest actor of his generation. I can't think of any other actors in that 60s range that are better than him. he's right up there. Such a varied actor. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. He made that role phenomenal. It's fucking very difficult to act alongside Leonardo DiCaprio in any movie and hold your own. And I just feel he never gets his flowers, Brad. He never gets the credit. I think it's because he is such a fucking handsome guy that people just think, he's a pretty boy. Pretty boy.
Yeah.
He's but Leonardo always gets and he deserves to get the credit.
Yeah, I think the terms of the Clith Booth character is that he is a laid back guy, you know, he's neither up or down and he kind of just sails through life. So it kind of that kind of sends that message across that the actor's the same, you know. But I think in terms of Clith Booth, I think there's enough scope there to make this an interesting film. It's not they're not really going into this, you know, and having to generate a backstory as such for this guy. He had, you know, by 1979 or whenever it is, he's already got a backstory in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and we know he's got a sketchy past, you know, in terms of his wife and stuff like that.
And we know he can handle himself.
Yeah,
so he's a sort of heavy hitter for the studios. He goes in and deals with problems, so it all fits beautifully. And the cast is phenomenal. We've kind of touched on it. Yahya Abdul-Mateen, Elizabeth Debicki, Scott Caan, son of hard man actor James Caan. I laughed at that when I searched that up. Son of tough guy actor. Yeah, because that's all James Caan was, wasn't he? He was a fucking tough guy actor. What a joke, man. It was like the other night we were reacting to a Safdie brother movie. Last night, I searched up the director. Brother of Benny Safdie, I think it was. So I'm like, what the fuck? What is going on here? But no, it's a great cast. Carla Gugino, I'm making her name up. I'm looking forward to it, man. I just hope that there's not too much of a disconnect. Hope that tonally that it kind of works, man. It's also got to be its own beast, its own animal. It's got to do its own thing. It's got to stand free from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but there has to be connective tissue there as well. So I hope there's just enough little nods to that movie. I personally would love to see Leonardo coming in and doing a cameo. It's not going to happen. I'm well aware of that. He's a busy boy. And he'd probably outshine everybody. Aside from Brad, we've already established he can hold his own. But looking forward to it, man. Hopefully they get it right. Fincher nails it. He's got the blessing of Tarantino. Nothing more to say though, other than to say thank you for watching this. If you've got anything to say at all on the subjects we've touched upon, the passing of Terence Stamp, legendary actor, thespian, theatre trained and all that jazz. Poster boy of the swinging 60s alongside Michael Caine and all the rest. Share it down below. Thoughts on Tarantino passing the torch over to Fincher for the Clith Booth character. Thoughts on the story, where they're going to go with it, him being a fixer-upper for the studios. Anything you want to share, pop it down below in the comments section. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get notifications straight to one's eyes for future content like this. Same thing over on Twitch. Follow button, notifications button over there to see us live on that platform. And also have to be said is thank you to Tomanoid for the comment. Bumpy self-justification AM on Twitch. You can fuck off because it's a bot. You're not getting thanked. And all that's really left to be said is thank you for watching us as well. And bye-bye.